So when I was studying philosophy, I studied this guy named Gabriel Marcel, and Gabriel Marcel, in his existential approach to philosophy, makes this distinction between a problem and a mystery. I found this always to be very helpful. What I hope to share today are some things that have helped me in my counseling practice with others, and this is one of the ideas. Most of us in the West think in opposites. You know, we think in dichotomies, and we think in categories. In fact, in our profession, we're encouraged to think in categories. We've been encouraged to do that by the DSM, for example, until its recent shift to a spectrum sort of approach. But the DSM was a system of categorical diagnostics, and if you have this, if you have this, if you have this, then you have that kind of thinking. um, and you don't have this, right? So you're ruling out this and that, and we're trained from the time we're kids, to think this way in in our cultural conditioning. So we think about good and bad. We think yours, mine. We think about us, them. We think about order and disorder, what that means, health and illness, all these dichotomies, doctor, patient, counselor, client. And what Gabriel Marcel asked, after inviting us to think about how we think, he posed the question: How comfortable are we with ambiguity? How comfortable are we with not knowing all the time? And the way he approached this, solving the problem, he talked about this. He said, when we may sometimes struggle with anxiety that arises in us, from our desire to solve a problem. So when we're presented with an issue or a problem, our anxiety may go up as we, struggle and desire to solve that problem, sort of a problem-oriented approach. A problem is outside of us and initially presents as an obstacle to overcome. The manner in which the problem is overcome, he proposes, requires verifiable information that can be tested and then generalized. This is the scientific approach. But in order, for the solution to be reliable, the problem must be objectified. And when that happens, the observer-object relationship is affected, and the observer becomes depersonalized, neutral, in order to control for observer bias. So that's Marcel's approach to problem solving. That's how he sees how we approach problems. But when we stand in the presence of mystery, it's like, for him, it's like, we are constantly asking questions, constantly trying to describe things, constantly trying to resolve problems. And the mind, the brain, the mind is always in this operational mode of inquiry. And every once in a while, it comes up against something, for which we don't have the answer, and that may move us into this realm of mystery. And when that happens, we find ourselves sometimes in a deeper relationship where deeper questions may come up. Questions like, for example, who am I? Why do I suffer and die? These questions that philosophy, religion, and spirituality have been trying to address for centuries. When these questions arise, very often the object observer, that dichotomy kind of melts away. And we find ourselves, converting the mystery into a problem again, or trying to do that mostly, from his perspective, to relieve our existential anxiety and a possible feeling of depersonalization. But to stand in the presence of mystery for Gabriel Marcel is to stand there, with an open heart and an open mind, with an open attitude towards ongoing inquiry. Once we solve a problem, we never have to ask the question again. Some of the time, because the problem is answered, the question is answered, so inquiry stops. but standing in front of mystery, is a way of maintaining a certain openness, and a capacity for surprise. Essentially, I always tell my students that one of the qualities of a good counselor is to be open to surprise. If we lose that capacity to be surprised, we might go down the road of burnout someday. So that's really important. And another thing that I always tell them is that humility is a good thing to keep in mind. Humility in the face of mystery, when we're sitting in front of another human being, that connection. We're sitting there with a person who has a depth of mystery. We can't possibly know that whole entire person, and what's going on inside that individual. And there are times, especially new counselors, new people, new excited people in training, who are very much into fixing things, problem solving, technique, and all those sorts of things. And that's good. That's where we start. But it's also good to remember that the research is indicating today that most of the variance that impacts treatment outcome occurs outside of the counseling relationship. And that if you're familiar with the work of Barry Duncan, you'll know that. And the variables that do impact outcome are variables that are associated mostly with the quality of the counseling relationship. The ability to be a participant in the therapeutic relationship. So I have found that to be very helpful to keep in mind. Humility, in the face of mystery, as a counselor interested in spirituality and religion, for me has been helpful.